Kia ora. In today's video, I wanted to share with you something that I've learned at that conference that I went to that was called Festival for the Future. And they usually use just the abbreviation of this in different social media, so just festival for, and it was T for that, Festival for the Future. And we went there with our young people who we work with, and it was a really amazing experience for all of us, not only for our young people, but we coordinators learned quite a lot as well. And there were quite a lot of things that we talked about during this festival, and many of them I think were quite important for young people to know and understand, and also know that it's all in their hands and different people can achieve so much. It doesn't matter what they have at the moment, it doesn't matter what environment they've grown up with. It doesn't matter whether they have disabilities or whether they have some other things that may, for example, limit their current ability, but if they just believe in themselves, then everything can be possible. And the concept that I want to talk to you about today was called the fundamental judgment error. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard about this term, but fundamental judgment error is just telling us how we judge people only on what we can see as their behavior, but there's so much more going on underneath that. And this was represented to us as an iceberg. You know that if you ever seen an iceberg, or maybe you've seen it on TV, you always have this tip of the iceberg sticking out from the water. And this is something that you can see, but most of it is actually under the water. Most of it you cannot see, and you cannot even imagine how big it is, what's going on inside. And the same with people. So most of the time when we try to make up our mind about someone on some subconscious level, we usually look at the tip of the iceberg, and obviously something that we look at is the behavior. And I'll just put it here, behavior. And this is something that we associate with the person, how good or bad they are based on how they behave. But we don't actually know what is going on behind and what is triggering this behavior. And sometimes it's really important to understand that, to make our judgments and maybe help the person. There were so many examples that showed us how important it is sometimes to just stop and help someone and not associate their behavior with who they are. And even when we talk to our kids or our friends, we need to separate their behavior from them as an individual and never refer to those people as bad, but refer to their behavior as bad, because we are not defined by just one thing. We are not defined by what we've done in the past. And underneath that ocean here, deep inside, there are so many things going on. So, first one that they mentioned was emotions. Our emotions and how our emotions can actually trigger this behavior. What do we feel in this specific moment? We feel sadness. What emotions we're experiencing and how they impact this behavior. And it's so important to actually take this into account when we judge the person about their behavior. Emotions are a very important component. And of course, there are thoughts. And these emotions that this person experiences actually are impacted by the thoughts. What are they thinking? What story are they telling themselves that actually affect this emotion? And emotion then affect their behavior. This is the chain reaction that is going on inside, underneath that iceberg, that we not always take into account. We may not always want to see that or hear that before we judge the person. What are those thoughts that they're thinking? What are they telling themselves? They're telling themselves that they're bad, that they're ugly, that they cannot do anything well, and whether this is something that triggers their emotions and then triggers their behavior. And then, of course, there are values. what are the values that we have? And each of us have different values. Family, money, what are our values that actually impacting on our thoughts? Depending on the values, we have different thought process. And then the values are actually formed by our beliefs. Beliefs. What are our beliefs? What are we telling ourselves? What we believe in? What we've been told over the course of our life that become our belief? What do we think is true for us, for the world? Do we think that all people are fundamentally bad? Have something happened that made us believe that something is true. Something impacted our beliefs as well and made us think that we're worthless, or that no one loves us, that everyone hates us. What are our beliefs that are triggering, impacting on our values? And what we can do to change them, change our beliefs and make sure that those beliefs are only positive. And of course there are needs. And those needs are very, very simple things that every person on earth need to be able to function as an individual, as part of the society. And if you remember the Maslow hierarchy of needs, what are those needs that are not met that triggers those beliefs? And that impact with the chain reaction our behavior, inform our values, our thoughts and emotions. If our basic needs are not being met, then all our beliefs, values, thoughts and emotions will be about those basic needs. If a child comes hungry at school, their need is not being met. They are hungry, their thoughts all about food impacts this emotion, impacts their behavior. They're not able to study, and they are experiencing a lot of pressure from their mates and from their teacher, and their behavior is a result of those needs not being met. And of course, somewhere deep down there are fears. We know that fears can be something good that protects us, that help us to survive, but is it also something that stop us from doing better in the life? The fears is something that actually can impact our needs, but sometimes they're so deep down embedded in everything around that this connection is even more impactful and can actually influence all other aspects. One of the fundamental needs is safety. That's also related to fears. And if the need of safety wasn't met, then we have this circle that just don't let us to progress in life. And sometimes this is so important, and not many things we can do without those needs basically being addressed. And this is this iceberg that shows us how many things we need to consider before we make our judgment about person's behavior, because there's so many other things going on. Our beliefs, our values, what we have been valuing in life, but also what our parents have been valuing, what they taught us, what they said was important, and what formed us as an individual, and sometimes impacted our values, our thoughts and emotions, and resulted in some kind of behavior. And this iceberg is floating in the ocean. And in this specific example, this ocean is our environment. And environment is something where we find ourselves, right? As this environment is something that actually affects all of this. It can affect us on all levels. And this environment is not only your surroundings, is not only your home or your garden. The environment is also people around you. They create the environment, and people around you can influence all of those things. And some people have very little influence on others, and some people have a greater influence. Our parents, our teachers, our bosses, someone in the office who is bullying, those people can impact on all of those levels just because they are in our environment. the behavior is just the result of